I know.
When was it?
Well,
Working.
we're gonna, I'm probably gonna see John, but you can go with our.
Yeah.
Got your response, he's cool. He's what you need to do. The individual.
Yeah.
Rotating chairs, musical chairs.
Every time we come to the different spots. Except you.
Guys seem to wind up in the
Yeah.
same zone.
They don't get bigger, they just, that's amazing.
And I love our chance to start taking class.
That's cool.
I think after tonight, it's 2 hours ago, I said, we're in all kinds of I'm sure it wasn't easy to do so. And I was, it may really be that much.
He's going to have to be the guy that's college law and early lady.
Who are we missing? Who doesn't have a seat?
Fairway.
They moved chairs around.
That's okay, that's okay.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May Cypresswood Community Association meeting. Our wonderful secretary, our vice president, is filling in as a secretary. He will do the roll.
Yes, I will. Club patio.
Present.
Cypress Pond.
Here.
Eagle Pond. Enclave.
Here.
Fairway patio.
Here.
Garden patio.
Here.
Golf villas.
Here.
Greenfield Village.
Here.
Meadows.
Here.
Oak Grove.
Here.
Palmacia.
Here.
Plantations.
Here.
Sand Hill Lane. Villas on the Green.
Here.
Mr. President, it looks like we have a quorum.
We do. Thank you very much. Next slide, please, Savannah. I need a motion and an approval for tonight's meeting agenda, please.
So moved.
Mr. Klein, thank you. Second? Okay, fair. Mr. Pemberton? Mr. Penn, I'm assuming as president you're going to be casting the votes. I mean, I know Doug's training, so, okay, just make sure we're clear. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I also need approval for the March 21st meeting minutes. Motion, Mr. Murphy has made such a motion. Mr. Cramp has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There were no resident comments. If you want to go to that slide. I will kind of halt right here as we have some guests in the audience. We've got Dwayne from Duke Energy to kind of give us a rundown of what's going to happen to the electrical upgrades that we're about to receive in the next several months. Dwayne, welcome, and here's the microphone. You're live on YouTube, so.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting. My name is Dwayne Emery. I'm the engineering manager for Lake Wells Highlands area. We've identified Cypresswood having a lot of reliability issues and outages, so Duke Energy has decided to upgrade your electrical system. We're replacing the majority of your primary underground cable. Approximately 26 transformers are going to be replaced, and then leveling out about 47 transformers. I have Primoris here. The other one's going to be doing the actual installation of the underground cable and transformers. And then I got Nancy Dodd also. She's with government and external communications.
Thank you all for letting us come in tonight. I've brought flyers to kind of talk about what's going to happen here. David with Primoris is going to be your contact. The number is on here. If you have any issues or any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And when we come into your neighborhood, we're going to actually be putting door hangers on areas that we're going to be going into.
Similar to this.
And there again, David's number will be on there. And we just want to make sure we keep you up to date on any issues and the time. We're going to be in here for a while, and you're going to see us a lot. You're going to see Primoris a lot. And if there are any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. This is David.
So normally I work from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you reach out by text, I'll get to you in the next moment or the next day, depending. If you have any issues, whether it be any sprinkler lines or anything with your grass, feel free to reach out. We'll make sure that it gets resolved with Duke Energy and ourselves. Also, if you have any questions on the updates of the job, or if there's any issues with the crews, our crews come in, they're professional. We'll make sure to clean up any trash, mitigate the area, make sure it looks nice whenever we leave. But if there are any issues, just feel free to reach out.
Kind of mention what you're going to be doing for
Hi, my name is Nick Kossel. I'm the supervisor for Florida on the underground side. So what we're tasked with is basically, like Dwayne said, we're going to replace all your underground primary. We're going to have horizontal directional drills in the area. We're going to start off with one crew. Unless Duke wants us to add any more crews, we're gonna have one crew. We're gonna start in the trailer park, and then we're gonna work our way over to here. The crew will have to open up pits in all the yards for anything that's located. They are going to be using tarps and everything like that to mitigate any type of, restoration needs or anything for the residents. The residents will see a bunch of locate flags in the yards once we get started. A bunch of different colors. I don't know if there's a way that we could get word out. I know everybody cuts their grass. We're getting into the rainy season. But if those flags get removed, and grass gets cut, it's kind of hard for us to do our work. So once my crew is done in the area, we will remove the flags, and then everything can be done as normal. But they will be doing a lot of digging, but just basically probably like 2x2, 3x3 holes. The sod, we will separate it, we will put it back. Anytime we have to take a machine in the yard, which the drill will go in the yards, we will mat them in, basically on big 4x8 fiberglass sheets to make sure that we mitigate as much as we can for the residents. But for the most part, the crews work 7 to 5:30. There are times where if something happens while we're pulling back or something, they may have an extended hours. I really want them to get out of the community by 5 o'clock or so we don't disrupt people, in the evenings. But if there are instances where we may be working late, David again will reach out, if we have to have him contact any customers that we're working around that day to make sure that they're aware, or we may have to unhook and just come back the next day. So, but again, if there's any issues whatsoever, if anybody has anything going on, anybody's not happy, please reach out to David. He has a direct line to me, and I'll make sure that those issues get resolved very quickly.
So he's gonna talk about outages.
Sure.
As well as the board work, we are doing the installs, so we're going to be with the crew in here pulling the wire and then also doing the makeup and the transformers. There will be outages. Normally the outages last between 2 to 5 hours, depending on what we find in the older transformers. We try to make sure that doesn't go over an extended amount of time. Sometimes, we do have pictures, sometimes the older transformers do require a little bit more work. We either have to lift, and we'll take it out of power, lift and level the pad, and then install new material, and then set the transformer back. But in addition to having an initial door hanger where the work will start, I will also come back out and put a door hanger 48 hours to a week in advance of any houses that will have an outage. So there will be advance notice on those. If for any reason there is any medical devices or anything, make sure to call my number, and we make sure to try and have generators on site or to work around any customer needs.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir. Why don't you start?
So in order to mitigate some damages, like I said, we're going to start over in the trailer park first, next door. We're going to be doing some ground penetrating radar to identify private facilities. If we get those back, we'd like to start this coming Monday. However, that may be delayed a little bit by the contractor that's doing the work for us in the trailer park getting the locates. If there's a delay, I'll let Dwayne know, and I'm sure he'll let Bob and everybody know that, but our scheduled start should be this Monday, providing we get the information back.
What's the time frame?
So the directional boring with one bore crew, I'm guesstimating it's going to take approximately 2 to 2.5 months, perfect scenario.
That's for all of us, or just the trailer park?
No, that's for the whole project.
All right. So what's if you're having an anticipated start of next Monday, if all goes right? What's your anticipated time that will take before you start and jump into our neighborhoods?
So the trailer park's probably going to take us probably about a week. So I would say probably, barring no issues, we should be into the community by June 1st.
Hookups to the homes?
Those are not being touched at this time. We're just doing straight primary, just into the transformers.
A lot of the transformer pads, because the city of Winter Haven has had a lot of leaks, water mains close to where the pads are. Are you going to re-level those transformer pads?
Yeah, so we've identified 47 transformers to be re-leveled, and then 26 replaced.
Because I got
Am I correct to understand there'd be no missing, it's all direct drill?
Correct, yes, all directional drill.
Oh, yeah, and, is that under the roadways?
Yes, sir. If there is a crossing, yes, if there is a crossing, we will cross the roadway.
You got a question?
Yes, sir. Yes. So once this date starts, the goal to be met, data that we see for the spreadsheet as this advances, we get out of the trailer area into this area.
So you're asking for like a direct timeline of everything? We have a call with Duke Energy that we're gonna provide weekly updates. I believe it's every Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're gonna give progress on the previous week, and then that'll continue throughout the duration of the project. And I don't know when that'll be.
Yeah, so once we get that, I'll give you guys a heads up of where we're going next. I'll let Bob know, and you can let HOA know.
So none of you right now are the engineer and the representative with that time.
Yeah, we don't have an exact timeline on that yet. So. But once we get closer to that time, as far as in certain neighborhoods, we'll let you know in advance.
It's got to be completed by the end of the year.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be done by the next year.
One of you mentioned that there would be generators available if the downtime extends to the point where we start to, for instance, lose our freezer food.
No, sir. So once David schedules the outages, unless people are in and out of their fridges, freezers, I mean, they're typically good for 8 hours. The only time that we would provide generators is if there's somebody that's on oxygen or something like that with a medical need that would need some type of a generator that wouldn't suffice, on a portable oxygen tank for more than 2 hours or something.
I did receive a question earlier last week. If you have a at-home generator, it should work once we start the outage. And the only reason it would not work is if it's not been serviced. So if your generator's up to date, oil, everything taken care of, then your generator should kick on. But everything should be kept inside within the time frame normal foods with thaw. But we haven't had any issues in the past with refrigeration and freezers going out.
You do realize that we have an awful lot of people that are not here. For the whole period. So the shut my freezer off, I'm supposed to do something about it.
So you're saying if somebody lives up north and we're gonna try to get a hold of those people also and let them know.
So when we do our outages, if I don't know, typically Duke can provide us the homeowners' phone numbers, and typically whether they're out of state or not. We've been doing this work for Duke now for 3 years. And David, if somebody's in Michigan and they only come down here a few months, if we have that Michigan number, David will make contact with them, make sure that they understand the work that's being done, and if there's a caretaker of the home or somebody responsible, David can reach out to them as well.
Any other questions?
David, the guy we see, and you guys will be putting the handout to that or sending everybody said.
Yes, the door hangers, David will handle those. Yes.
We'll have all these.
And I'll set them right outside, so.
Are the door hangers going to give the phone numbers for each of the specialties that each one of you are going to handle?
So David's number will be on all the door hangers. He's our point of contact. So anytime a door hanger is hung, it'll be to notify that particular homeowner or that area that we're starting work in that area, and then they won't get another door hanger until we have to schedule like an outage or something like that. But David's contact information will be on there for any issues that come up.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just give him a call.
Yes.
He'll let you know what's going on.
Well, the people who aren't here probably won't have a lot of questions. Yeah. So you have a man who's going to be checking houses?
Yeah, we always knock on the doors before we start work. I mean, if somebody's not home and there's a door hanger up, the person's not here, if we can't get a hold of them out of state or something, I mean, we'll exhaust every resource we have to make sure everybody gets notified.
I mean, common sense would say that if my neighbor has gone north for the summer, they probably took a lot of the food out of their freezer, out of their fridge with them, so that may not be as big an issue as we would think it would be.
Yes, sir.
And if you do know that neighbor's number, it's probably good, I could give him a call.
Exactly.
If David called and say, hey, this guy's not living here right now, then we would try to contact him.
And again, our outages, unless something goes awry, our outages are typically 2 to 4, usually a lot less than that. And again, as long as you're not in and out, just checking your food every 10 minutes, they'll last and hold up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here's all the phone numbers.
Thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. Landscape Committee, Mr. Wilson.
Thanks, Bob. As you received a notification, we want to do some tree trimming in June. We've asked for 3 days, and what I would like right now is if we could put those slides up as to where we're going to be working. This is the very front palm tree. It's on the west side of the entrance. That needs to be worked on about 2 times a year, so that's going to be included in that, the next one. This is back behind 1816 Sand Hill. This is right along the canal, and those trees are right at the canal, and we are responsible for taking care of the vegetation along the canal, not the homeowner. So he has 2 dead pine trees in there, and we want to get that out before storm seasons come. So that's going to be included. Next slide. This is the palms that we see along the boulevard all the time, and over the history of the community, even though some of those might be on private property, we maintain the boulevard side of it so that they look good, so that when people come down the main boulevard, those palms are cared for and look appropriate for the boulevard here in Cypresswood. Next one. This is at the, we call it one of the triangles on the west side of the boulevard where the pump and the well is for the irrigation for the entire boulevard. In there we have palm trees. We have about 8 of them that go around there, and it's time that those get trimmed up for storm season. So that's part of the equation. That's the last slide there. There's one more that we're going to be working on as far as an individual tree. And as you come up to the 4-way stop to turn right to come to the country club, everybody notices that big branch that hangs down there. Well, it's going to go away. So we have trucks that hit that. We have in the past had homeowners who talk about their motor homes, if they bring them back in here. That's going to be gone, and I think it's going to be welcome. We won't see it anymore. The other thing we're going to be doing is the canopy. And the canopy involves the entire boulevard from the very front entrance at the traffic light, not the traffic light, where the sign is, all the way back to the end of Oak Grove. We periodically go through there once or twice a year to check the branches that are down below that 16-foot level because of trucks that are hitting them, and it just maintains a nice look as you go down the boulevard. So we're going to be doing that. There's not a lot there, but we are going to address some, and then we're going west on Palmacia. We have some canopy in that area we're doing. We did receive a request regarding, I think it was sawgrass, wasn't it, Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not in that's not in the area that we maintain. That would be the responsibility of Gulfville if they wanted to do that on that street.
Question though,
Yes,
what is the limit from the center of the street to the tree?
I'm sorry, the limit for what?
The footage.
It varies.
Yeah, I noticed
In the
that.
divided section, it's about 25 feet from the edge of pavement on either side.
From
And
edge of
once you
pavement
get
to the tree?
to the edge of the our responsibility. From the edge of the roadway, it's about 25 feet.
So if we got a tree that's within 25 feet, it's your responsibility. If it's outside of it, it's mine.
Yeah, an imaginary line that goes vertical.
Yeah. Okay.
But, yeah.
But
And
we've
while
been
we're talking
training-
about trees, let me, if I can, one of the things I would like to start so that you can take advantage of when Dale Medlock is here, Medlock Tree Service, is it'd be great. He can do some pretty good pricing. If you would like to notify your homeowners, say, hey, we've got the tree service, it's gonna be available in the community during June. If you would like to call him and schedule some work on your property, I think this would be the appropriate time to do it, and it would show the community that, yeah, we can take advantage of the fact that we have a tree service here. He's going to quote it based upon what he's requested to do for the homeowner. It has nothing to do with our budget, but it at least allows the homeowner not to have to get the whole crew in, get the whole crew out. The crew is already here. So, yes.
I contacted, because I think you referred him to Mr. Medlock.
Yes.
Or the company.
Yes.
I had 2 projects on the boulevard, near where the golf course property comes out to the boulevard.
Okay.
One of them, he was $400 higher. On the other tree, he was $600 higher, just so that the people hear this recommendation, know that I tried it, and he was that much difference, and the people that I had come in and do the work for that much of a smaller price did an excellent job. So if they would like to have a recommendation of someone who would come in and beat the price by, now this was a $1,000 job, beat by $400. The other one was a $1,300 job, beat by $600. Same company you're talking about. Maybe we're just having a bad month or something, I don't know. I'm not making excuses for him, but I think that the presidents, or even the citizens sitting behind me, should know that there are competitors out there who do excellent work and charge a lot less money.
And you're absolutely right, John. What
I
you
know
did, I'm sorry, what?
I said I know.
That you're right?
Yes.
Oh, I
I wouldn't be telling it if it wasn't true, because I don't lie.
John, I'm not questioning it. I'm
I know.
agreeing with you.
Thank
But
you.
can I finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we're taking advantage of here, John, is the fact that Medlock will be here. You asked him to do something that came in from his home base in to do the work here and to leave. It's a separate project. Yes, somebody might have done it a little cheaper. What we're taking advantage of here, John, is the fact that he's going to be on property and he can reduce those amounts very well. I can't sit up here and say you can go out and here's a list of people to call for the tree service. The homeowner has the right to say, I talked to Medlock, he gave me a number. I talked to somebody else, he gave me a number. I like somebody else, and I'm gonna take it. So that's exactly the right way this should be done. I'm just saying.
Bidding, right?
If I'd like to give you all his number, and if you wanna contact your homeowners that might want some tree work done, here's the number. Medlock Tree Service, 863-676-7306, 863-676-7306. If they would like to contact, he will quote it. He will quote it based upon being on property when it happens. But that's a good point, John. free market, so.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna give the phone number of the gentleman that I use and his company, but I'd be happy to give it to anybody who wants to call me at home to help them save money over the Medlock price.
Okay, that's fine. Now, what I need is, we want to have is the motion for $4,200 for 3 days of service for Medlock to come in June. I'd like this.
And this is in the tree budget, correct? This is
Yeah,
in
oh,
the-
absolutely.
It's budgeted money.
Budget.
So do we have Mr. Cran, do we have a second? Mr. Mullen, thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All good.
There's nothing really left to report. We talked the last meeting about about Dundee Road. We're gathering information right now that will be presented in the June meeting for our budget. So you will see how the Dundee Road fence project is going to affect the recommendation. We are going to do the painting for the front sign in 23. It's an interesting market out there right now. I sent out 6 invitations to commercial painters and only 2 of them responded. So just so that you know that it's a competitive market out there. They're not really out looking for work right now. They have plenty of work. So we had 2 people come back, and the one we chose will be in the budget recommendation. And that's it. That all I have. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you explain to us why we need a fence along?
Hang on. Let me come back there because I can't hear what you're saying.
I'll relay it. I'll relay it.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't want you tripping over that thing again. So come on over here. Thank you.
He's asking, the question is why does landscape feel we need a fence at the front entrance? I think that's a multi-committee question, but
that's not a landscape question. That's a community question. Why do you want a fence at the front project?
I think that's more goes to traffic control at some point if we want to have that discussion. Not really landscape's just charged with maintaining the property between the fence and the road, essentially.
Yeah, all of these are options. No, we were tasked this past year because we're landscape. See what we can do with it after the construction gets done. That's not normally, we handle the vegetation on the fence. We trim it 3 times a year, and we've trimmed it 3 times a year forever. Right? But the fence project is a community project. That's your fence.
Right.
I don't know how you want to classify it, but the fence up in the front of it is part of the community entrance. So that's where you come in, and I'll do whatever you would like to do, but I just want you to know we've been tasked with the project. We're going to follow through and give you a budget recommendation. It's up to you to handle it.
But that has nothing to do with whether or not the fence is actually there or not. That would not come, that would have to be this body's decision and recommendation from other committees.
Okay.
Right. And yes, Mr. Mullen, the fence is on one of the parcels that's included in the 50-year lease. Just to be clear. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Quick question.
Yes, Doug.
Scale and disease that's on all the bushes and trees that I've seen around here. I've only been here a year. So who takes care of that? They come through every Monday on Eagle Pond Drive, and they take all the new life off to leave all the scale and disease down below. It's not taking the bushes. So
Are you asking on the community association property or on Eagle Pond's property?
I want to say it's all of that.
Well, Total Pest Control is still our pest control service, correct?
Pest control?
For the spray service, not pest, the spray service. Is that?
Yeah, that's Total Pest Control, and they do all our common areas and the clubhouse.
Right. So if you want to give us specific areas, I can relay that to landscape so they can check out those with that provider.
You got to do all around Eagle Pond Drive.
Well, if Eagle, again, we have to determine, Doug, whose property is on, because if it's on Eagle Pond's property, it's Eagle Pond's responsibility, not the master association.
We don't do anything with Eagle Pond. We don't do anything with Golf Villas. We don't do anything with Enclave.
Right. Right. Just give me the locations, Doug, and we'll investigate. Thank you.
Bet.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. Traffic control, Mr. Reese.
Give you an 8 on that, Rick.
Thank you so much. Let's see, traffic control. The bus stop at Greenfield Road has continued to be an issue. I know a month back or 2 months back, we addressed cars coming in the resident lane. We got a bus that's stopping, loading or unloading. What are we supposed to do? Our committee met again today, and there's still an issue that's a safety issue that I'll be reaching out to the Polk County School Board, whoever's in charge of buses. Apparently the bus is coming in the resident gate and basically doing a 180 three-point turn there, backing back up into the boulevard to load and unload. That's not a real safe thing regardless. I don't care how good the driver is. So I will be contacting Polk County to see if we just can't have that bus go all the way down to the 4-way, hang a left on Greenfield, come through the development, and stop at the stop sign at Greenfield and Cypresswood Boulevard, load and unload there. What that will do by having the bus on Greenfield, loading and unloading, that will not inhibit incoming traffic on the resident lane. They will not have to stop. Okay? Obviously, those that want to turn left to Greenfield better stop. Okay? Those that are trying to exit the community should stop as well. Buses immediately on your right. So that's something we're going to address with Polk County School Board. Now, it's come to my attention also that over the course of probably the last month or so, we've had an issue of solicitation, and it stems from ADT Security. Has anyone had anyone from ADT Security knocking on your door? Okay. It was brought to my attention by one of the presidents that ADT showed up at someone's door after 8 or 8:30 at night. And of course, the first question was, how did they get in? And unfortunately, Superman wasn't at the gate that night, and they were allowed in. We've hopefully rectified that situation. But since that episode, we have had at least 3 or 4 other instances where someone purporting to be ADT has come to the gate, has given an address, does not have a phone number. Couple occasions they've given a falsified address because there ain't no such address out here. So they're picking numbers and choosing a street name and thinking the guard at the gate is going to let them in. So since the initial fiasco, my understanding is that the other 3 or 4 attempts by ADT to get in here have been stymied and have been turned around and exited the community. I'm asking the board presidents tonight for a motion to move that we, as we did with a roofing company that was in here soliciting, I would like to ask the board presidents for permission for our attorney to send a letter to ADT Security as well, advising them that we would prefer not to have their company in our development for the foreseeable future.
I have.
Yes, Mr. Crank.
I have ADT Security, but, you know, if they don't, I call them and they come out and repair some stuff. But just blanking, they can't come out, I need them, I need them.
How do we know it was legitimate ADT and not a scammer?
And we don't. What I'm going to say, you know, we're still doing the call ahead procedure. So if you've got a vendor, if you've got issues with ADT and they're coming to your house, you notify the gate. The gate will let those come through.
Okay.
These are unsolicited, uncalled ahead vendors that are coming in for whatever purpose. It may not be, very good point, Jason, it may not be ADT, it may just be some ne'er-do-well that's trying to get in our building.
Weren't we prohibiting that type of activity, like residents had to call if these one-off type of service providers were coming to the community?
Yes, if a vendor, purported vendor shows up at the gate and says, hey, I'm Joe with ADT, I'm going to Dave's house. Well, if Dave hasn't called him in,
Exactly.
Joe ain't going.
Right.
So.
Okay? So that's very important, and that's one of the reasons to have this, is so that it takes the pressure off the guys and gals at the gate. Okay?
What about the cameras? Is it a different vehicle each time, different person that actually?
My understanding is these have been some out-of-state tags.
Yeah, so I think
we've
if
had
anything, we should be
people
calling
that-
Polk County Sheriff and have them do a few more watches.
We have had people that, and not everyone that's going to be soliciting a service is going to be dressed in a ADT shirt. I understand that. Some of them are just dressed like, casual. But this has been going on for at least the last month, and it's not stopping. So that's why I'm asking for us to go ahead and ask our attorney to send ADT a letter that says,
Well, if anything, I'd have them send a letter just to verify if it's legitimately their service or not.
okay,
Yeah. So I would probably ask you.
You're
Dave,
more
if
than
you
likely
have
not going to get a
ADT,
response out of ADT because he has to know which office of ADT he has to send it to. Polk County would generally be handled out of Tampa rather than Orlando, but they both have offices in that. So
David,
you're also dealing with a company that is nationwide, so just sending a blanket letter off isn't
Is there
really
like a
going to
field
accomplish
office?
much.
do you have a contact that you could share with either me or with our attorney so that we could
It's
get?
an 800 number, and I call them. It's not,
Okay, but do you not have someone locally
No,
that you use?
no.
Okay.
They're local when they come, you know, either Lakeland or Bartow or Winter Haven,
Okay.
but they're contracted with ADT.
Since our attorney is sitting here, let's see what he suggests.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
If you'd like me to do something about it, I will try to find out exactly who we need to notify, and we can do something about it. Now, as our gentleman from Oak Grove wisely pointed out, determining whether or not these people are actually ADT vendors or not, it's kind of an open issue because ADT has a rather interesting way of doing sales. They are a national firm, but they tend to do a lot of independent contractor sales. So these guys could be legit, they could be not legit. It's rather difficult to tell sometimes. So, I mean, if you guys want me to send something out to ADT to let them know that future unsolicited vendors will be turned away, I can certainly do that.
I think that would be a great idea.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so Mr. Attorney, scribe away.
Well, I think we need a motion. I think we want a motion over here in a second.
Wait, what was the motion? To do that?
Basically.
Okay, to have the attorney write the letter, telling them not to do it anymore. Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We did have a resident come in right at the last minute that wishes to address the board. I'm going to stop and go back to that, and she would like her 3 minutes. Ma'am, if you'll please.
Hello, I'm Mirta Gibson and I live in Oak Grove. I come before this board tonight as a concerned resident due to several aggressive dog incidents that I have experienced within Cypresswood. I walk together with my daughter's dog, who is 12 pounds, well-mannered, non-aggressive, and friendly to all. In a matter of a few weeks, I have experienced 4 incidents of aggressive dogs that were not able to be controlled. The first incident happened while walking in Plantation. I heard someone yelling behind us, and when I looked back, a dog was running fast toward us. I picked up Coconut quickly, not knowing the dog's intention. Thankfully I did, because the dog was so fixated on grabbing him, but was I able to prevent it from doing harm. The second incident was with another aggressive animal that actually forced the woman to fall backwards in an attempt to control her dog when it lunged and pulled toward us. The dog was so strong that the owner had fallen in order to keep it at bay. The third time occurred last week with that same dog, who I believe lives in Cypress Pond. This time the dog was able to break away from the owner and ran towards me and Coconut. I heard the family calling their dog's name and tried to stop it. I grabbed Coconut and braced myself as it jumped on me several times to get to him. I kept turning around, trying to avoid the dog having any contact with mine. The family tried to get the attention of their dog to get it to stop. At this time, my feet were now wrapped by their leash, and I implored their help before I fell. Thankfully, they grabbed their dog before it could have been worse. The fourth incident occurred yesterday morning. A man pulled his dog into a driveway to allow us to pass by. In our greeting of hello, he said that his dog liked small dogs because of his barking out of excitement. During this time, Coconut is unreactive as usual, and we continue on our walk. Next thing I know, the man yelled frantically, "Pick up your dog! Pick up your dog!" I then threw all my belongings on the road so I could get Coconut, but I failed. By then, the dog was already at our side and aggressively trying to get to him. During this commotion, my dog, in an effort to save himself, ran off. I cannot say that if he had not run off, he could have been either killed or seriously injured given the size of the other dog. Thankfully, he is home and he is fine, but with this latest attack, I was afraid that he was going to be another dog that was killed in Cypresswood. I am here today to share my recent experiences, and I am positive there are more cases out there. I implore the help of the board to come up with a potential solution to create and maintain a safe environment for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Road and Drainage Committee, Mr. Bill Shira.
Thank you. Not much to report from Road and Drainage. We've got a couple of watch items that we're working on, a retention pond that's going to need to be cleaned up. Depression appeared in a road. It's pretty small. We've seen it before. We're going to dig it up and find the source of that. In addition to that, we had the tubes on the pumps that we put in last year painted. We did apply kind of a different process to that. We didn't like the direction it was going. Those of you that have been on the golf course, you'll see it when you see the pumps that are out there. It was a small budget item. We will be doing our budget process in the month of July, our budget process for 2023. And I'd like everyone to be aware that the rainy season's about to start. With that, our roadways are some of the primary areas that carry stormwater to our stormwater dispersion system. And if you would, please be sure that those drain inlets, that folks aren't, stacking yard debris and things like that there, that those are clear. If any of them look to have weeds and whatnot, just give me a call. I'll come out and spray it and get rid of the weeds and stuff. If anybody has anything that needs investigation, catch me at the end of the meeting.
Next slide, please. The Treasurer's Advisory Committee, our illustrious treasurer, Mr. Scott Trevor.
Thank you, Bob. Next slide, please. We did not get our financials
in time for April, so we'll be looking at March data. And not much to report. We are running under budget this year, but it's early. So until we get through the year and avoid things like hurricanes, etc. But it looks good. I think, Fred, I noticed that some of the items that end up in landscape seem to be front half of the year, correct? Tree trimming and, yeah, okay. And Bill, on the drainage budget, that seems to be running very low. Is there just nothing to report on that?
The drainage budget has about 50% of the budget is for items that come up when we have a drainage maintenance issue. And when that happens, it's much more than what the monthly budget is. What we do is, as we're going through the year, we watch what we're spending, and we see that we're not needing to save up for an emergency. We go to attack the old parts of the system, which need replaced. So yeah, that's the reason it appears that way.
Good deal. Thank you. In the amenities side, at the bottom, we're running below budget as well there on agronomics, and I'll discuss that in a minute, and some maintenance and equipment items. Other than that, nothing in the budget this year that needs to be brought up, nothing unremarkable. Everything's unremarkable, I should say. Next slide, please. The TAC committee is going to be putting together a reformatting of the balance sheet just to be able to address things like reserves and unrestricted reserves. We're going to do that so that we can monitor spending in the future and planning for spending in the future. That's going to be combined with a bit of a comprehensive look at what needs our community will have over the next 5 to 10 years that we should be looking at to consider reserving for, just the same way that we reserve for roads, drainage, and things of that nature. Also, the unrestricted reserves, which serves to act as a balancing to our financial statement at year end. If we're under budget, our unrestricted reserve goes up. If we're over budget, we'll pull from that to balance out, but it sits there as a backup emergency for us. Before I go to the next slide, there's going to be a TAC meeting next week, probably Monday in the morning. We're going to continue our discussions on the option to purchase the property. We met a couple of weeks ago, made good progress. There's more to do. We've had a couple of subcommittees that are working on gathering up some data that's going to help. There will be a June 11th workshop at the clubhouse at 9 a.m. to discuss, for the board and for the community to attend. It's a Saturday morning. Yep. At 9 a.m. to go through the purchase of the property that's in our lease option. You as a board should expect you're going to be voting probably in our August meeting on the purchase. That'll give us enough time to do some follow-up work we may need to do with appraisals, surveys, and then meeting with the owner to negotiate final price, things of that nature, if the board votes to purchase property. So the plan for that to be in August, we've got a little bit of wiggle room. It does need to be by the September meeting because all the HOAs have to set their budgets for 2023. That's a number that needs to be in it. You could put a contingent number in it and pull it out, but we'd like to have that wrapped up. Next slide, please. This is the amenities request for the board to approve spending. You received this from Bob in advance of the meeting. This is a different look at what you've always voted, what the board has always voted on, and that is that up top we've got the loan servicing, which was grandfathered in and really doesn't require any voting. Below that, we have the amenities budget items that have been spent, and this shows it by month. In this meeting, you'll need to have a motion to approve the March and April spend, which totals $47,739.68. So, was there any questions on how this is presented this time?
A question about, I think, understanding where the money comes from that pays for the amenities, the recreation amenities. It comes, I don't think everyone understands that the dues paid to the CCA wind up, much of the dues money paid winds up paying for the amenities, which we had hoped at one time would probably pay for themselves. So do we know actually how much money the amenities have brought in since 2018, when the lease started on January 1st of 2018? Do we know how much money has come in and how much we've had to spend? Beside the $2 million that we borrowed, that money went fast to big projects. But just in agronomics, most of what supports the amenities to operate comes out of the dues for the CCA. Isn't that true?
It does. Can we go back 2 slides? So on this slide at the top, you've got your assessments. Our amenities budget, every year, this board sets a budget for the next year. Each board does that. And half the budget goes for operational items. That's the top half. Half the budget, roughly, goes for amenity items. That's the lower half. And that's the reason we present it this way, John, is to be able to show down within the amenities where we are spending the money. Now, if you go then back forward 2 slides, please.
Would it be fair, Scott, to say if we hadn't had the lease, all those millions of dollars would not have been spent from the CCA dues?
I can't speak to that. I can only speak to the current time. I've been your treasurer just for this year. I know where you're coming from. How much have we spent on the golf course? And
not just the golf course, all of the amenities.
Scott. Yeah, but I'm not, one second. I'm not sure that for our purpose in this discussion with regard to what we're approving here, I didn't prepare to, and if the board so needed that, I suppose, but I haven't prepared that data to be able to present that, John. You've asked a question of, do we know? I can assure you we have the data. Do we need to collect it? I'm not sure. Mike?
His presumption is erroneous. What supports the amenities is not out of the general budget of the CCA. The amenities budget is funded by its own assessment. And then the combination of the amenities assessment and the general assessment is what makes up the total amount paid to the CCA. Generally speaking, everything that you've asked for approval of there is already allocated for in the budget and provided by the amenities assessment, which I believe is how much a year? 502 a year.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, the question. This was in the budget for this year. We're actually running a little bit under budget, which I'll get to in a minute. We need a motion.
We need the normal motion for the operational support requests for March and April of $47,739.68. We have such a motion. Mr. McCall has made such a motion. Is there a second? Mrs. Goodrich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion passes.
Excuse me just a minute. I wanted to ask the board, I think it's important. Jason, I wanted to point what you see there on the January, February, March, change directly in response to your request. And it's a couple other presidents to have that broken out by the items in the request, broken out by their specific amounts. I hope you recognize that. We spend a lot of time trying to come up with to meet that request.
And I agree that's helpful, but I guess the questions that I have are, we had a meeting in March where we voted separately to approve on the amenities expenses. In fact, I just brought up the meeting minutes, and the requested amount was $29,828.90. So up here, you're requesting $28,668 for March. So first question, why are we voting on March again?
You're not. You voted on that number and that number, and now you're voting on this number and this number. It's a trailing number.
That's exactly right.
So when you voted at the March meeting, it was for the business that had been conducted in January and February. So if you add the 11,278 and the 18,551, you'll get the 29, that amount that was in that meeting. So here we are now in our May meeting, and we're picking up where we left off and picking up March and April. And ironically, all of this is money that was already in last year's request from amenities for budgeting in this year. For some reason, we have to approve it because we didn't itemize it last year, and this is an itemization of where it went. Yeah, it's approval.
Do we approve the expenses for the CCA budget sometime during the year?
When the budgets are presented by the committees?
No, I mean on the monthly expenses, when $2,000 or $10,000 worth of electric light bills come in. Do we vote on approving that? Or do we just vote on special amenities to keep the amenities going? I never hear us being asked, somebody make a motion that we pay the electric light bill.
Did you receive, it's done in summary, but you've received the financial statement from the CAM that Bob sent out that breaks down at 34 pages of every line item and every spend. It's pretty clear. It's tedious, but it's very clear.
That wasn't my question. I didn't say it wasn't clear. I've got it right here.
It was presented
I'm
last
probably one
year.
of the only people that print it out, but I do print it out and I do go over it.
Good. It was presented in last year's budget, though, which was approved. Can we move on? Shall we? Next slide, please. This is your data. You want me to present it? Okay. I'm on a roll. Thank you. So it's interesting. This is a profitability snapshot of our club operator, who is in his 5th year of his agreement with us. And the first 100 days of the year are the peak season. So I pulled his data and put together a 4-month snapshot of how we've done this year. That's what this report is. The first column is January through April of 2022, and it breaks down golf and the pub, and then the other things that generate small amounts. The next 2 columns are just a summary of prior years. Best I can tell, in 2018 and 2019, you operated at a golf club that had a golf course that needed some help, greens, and some other things. So that got done, as we all know, with the loans. 2020 came and started off nicely, but then the pandemic hit. And that last column gives you the numbers from 2020. Last year, 2021, things picked up, but we still have travel restrictions during our peak season, so we had less play, less of our visitor guests that play, less revenue. and less profitability. So fast forward to 2022, and the first 4 months show us a nice profit. If you look at the total, which is that first section, profit of $232,000 for the club operation. Now look, we've got 6 months facing us where we know it's not in season, and you're going to be subsidizing the next 6 months with profit from the first 4 months. We know that. But what's encouraging is 2022 is really the first year that I think Cypresswood as a community intended to have a nice golf course where people would come and play it, and we don't have the pandemic beating us over the head. And we've seen, I didn't run percentages, but you can see the growth. The income is a good 25% higher, if not 30% higher, and there's profitability.
What's the margin year to year? Your profit margin? I mean, it appears to have grown in the 2022 year that your profit margin is greater than it was in the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm just curious though, what are those actual numbers and what is that margin number? I don't have a calculator with me to do it.
Keep in mind, it's a 4-month view. We've got to get through the entire year to balance out the seasonality, of course, what we play. You can speak to what you know is going on in the community or the competition, if you will, for golf right now, because I think you're seeing other play from some courses are closed and things of that nature. I'll let you speak to that. The point of the matter is, though, it took us 5 years to get to this point, and these numbers sort of prove that. They show us that, you know, we can improve at the club level. I think this is what we had hoped for in 2020. And at the end of the day, when the year ends, if you can maintain this profitability, some assessment money is going to come in. Our community's not going to be pointing fingers at you so hard. Any club operator who has to endure what you deal with, golf is like farming. Subject to weather, insects, disease, the whole 9 yards. You're subject to pandemics and rain and everything else. So that's that report. We've been doing it, I've been doing it quarterly, but we didn't get the numbers from that, so we just did this 4-month view this time. We'll probably look at it after, maybe in August, after July, after that quarter ends again. Keep everybody updated that way. All right.
Remind them to go get all this.
You're sending out the deck? Okay, yeah. Any questions for the treasurer? Thank you. Good work. Next slide, please. This is my part of the program where I go over the golf course report. As you can see, I missed the parentheses, I apologize. Rounds of golf year to date, 2022 are up significantly, 20,704 to 16,997. That again shows off the investment. That is through 4/30. That's a good start to the year. We do know that what's happening in the summertime, play goes down. We do have a couple advantages this year. Greenleaf is closed. That will help us. And we're in relatively good shape to our market. I think we're getting very close to what I said, going from a 2 to a 6 or a 7, which is where I think we're financially sustainable. And Imperial Lake's closed as well. That's true, over in Lakeland. So we are getting significant traffic from the Lakeland market nowadays. Any questions on that? Next slide, please. This is the agronomic report. The greens last Tuesday were successfully aerated. It'll take 2 to 3 weeks to recover. We will aerate the greens again on June 21st. We do that about every 7 weeks. It is an investment in the care of the greens that the community invested in 2 years ago. The greens are fertilized weekly. The greens will have herbicides applied on a weekly basis. The greens are top dressed every 2 to 4 weeks.
The greens are treated with a nematicide every 3 weeks, and the greens are verticutted every 3 to 5 weeks. These are all in an effort to keep those investments in the best shape possible with the budgeted money that we have. The teas, all the stations are fertilized and herbicides every 3 to 4 weeks. All the stations will be aerated once the aerator begins to cooperate. That's some of that repair and maintenance that we talked about earlier. Green surrounds and approaches. Herbicide will be done every 2 weeks, and then we fertilize once a month. Any questions on that slide? Next slide, please. The fairways, we've applied herbicide to all the fairways recently. We've got one more to go, and then we'll do it every 3 to 5 weeks. We have a full mold cricket preventive that will happen in late May, and then the follow-up to that will coincide with the full moon. They seem to hatch then. The roughs, this is the area of the most concern to those of us who live along the golf, those that you that live on the golf courses. I do not. We expect to be able to maintain them to golf course standards until the growth of the grass outpaces our resources. That's a very significant issue in the summertime. The less rain we get, the better chance we'll have to fight it. We were fairly good last year. Bunkers, edging, weed control, and increase in sand productivity has started and will continue throughout the summer. Any questions on that slide? Next slide, please. And did you know we maintain 140 acres inside the Cypresswood community? Of that, 80 acres is golf course playable areas. We still have no golf course mechanic, but I did get an application today, so maybe. We currently have a golf course maintenance staff of 8, including a certified golf course superintendent. We are seeing some people inquiring and dabbling, and so it seems to be picking up. We've actually hired 2, lost 1. That's a net gain. We like that. The labor market is funky, no doubt about that. Any questions on that? Fantastic. Next slide. This is the new business section. As it's been stated, budget presentations begin next month. June will be landscape and traffic control as well as the G&A, which is the CAM, the lawyer, all that sort of stuff, the detailed stuff to run the association. And then July, road and drainage and amenities will make their presentations. So that's kind of the schedule. We do have the workshop that's scheduled for June 11th, Saturday, June 11th at 9 a.m. in this room. It should be very informative. Scott Shire will have the mic and we'll be running rampant, maybe a few others. Savannah, would you guys on a Saturday morning be able to broadcast that if possible?
When? What?
Saturday the 11th. Check your schedule and let me know. We'll make every attempt. Remember the Savaris Group, Savannah, and they volunteer to do this for us. We do not pay them to do this for us. So, I mean, thank you, ladies, for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Could be on TikTok or on Facebook or something. Instead you're here broadcasting this meeting. So, thank you very much for doing that. That's a long overdue. Thank you. Any other new business? Yes, sir, Ms. Potter.
It's small. I wasn't here last time. It was hard to hear when I was on the phone.
Yes.
At our last meeting that we had some of our neighbors come up, and they brought up the topic. And if this has already been discussed, I apologize. Okay. They were discussing wanting a yard sale, and the entire board agreed that we'd like to have a yard sale. Everybody that was in attendance said they'd like to have a yard sale, and the people that were on, what do you call it, Zoom? So it was unanimous. And we talked to the lawyer about it, but I just didn't know where the community stood with that. I also didn't know if it's like an all or nothing kind of thing. Because I also don't believe that it would be fair to have some communities say, it could be a security issue, and just because Greenfield Village is okay with it doesn't mean someone else would be. So I just was wondering, I was wondering if that had gone anywhere.
I don't remember how it was resolved, to be honest with you. Does anybody have a recollection of, I'd have to look back and say.
We're just gonna table.
Yeah, I think we kicked it down there. Because I don't think it had, because there's a little bit, it needs to be assigned to either traffic control or somebody to, and I think it was gonna be a community by community decision whether they were gonna participate. Not that if, Greenfield decided they weren't gonna do it, that the whole thing was nixed. I think that's my recollection, but,
I mean, can it be just Greenfield Village? I mean, would anybody say that's a problem?
Mr. Attorney's shaking his head and grinding his teeth, so
We're
maybe
just
it's something
talking.
to
We're
say.
just talking.
Yeah.
How would we do it neighborhood by neighborhood?
I know some communities have already banned garage sales. I remember that. There were a few. And I know if an individual community decided they wanted to do a community-wide garage sale, that would definitely be something that would have to be coordinated through the traffic control center.
Right.
I mean, 100%. And it would be interesting for this community and for certain communities. I think some communities, a community-wide garage sale would work out better than others.
Sure.
And a lot of it just has to do with the nature and condition of the roads. There are some communities here that have very narrow, very compact roads, and trying to do a community garage sale would just terribly impractical. Others have wide, spacious roads, and a community-wide garage sale might be feasible. So it might be something that the individual communities would have to decide on, and if they did, then we'd probably have to work something out with the traffic control center about it.
One more thing, when me and you were having a conversation about it, you'd also told me at the rear end of it that, let's say we had it and it was a huge mistake. We can stop it there. We don't have to go back into it, correct? Like if it was an epic failure.
Oh yeah, you don't have to do another one.
That's what I'm saying, so what's the risk? I'm leaving you with that.
I have a
Yes, sir.
question somewhat related. Do we have anything that's been filed with the state of Florida regarding like official rules or regulations for this community? Because I've never seen anything on the website regarding that. I've just seen a section about some community-wide rules. Does the attorney know?
Do you know if you're talking about the community association, not the individual, where it's not an HOA? I don't know the answer. Do you?
No.
Actually, the articles and bylaws have been recorded for the Cypresswood Community Association. That was done several years ago. However, you have to keep in mind that the rules for the community association are a little bit different, and they address different things. They're not necessarily a set of CCRs, like you can't have purple mailboxes and things like that. So if you're looking for something that looks like that, you're not going to find it. What you are going to find are the articles and bylaws of the association, which were recorded.
But I think what Mr. Potter is describing is kind of having some, community-wide rules and regulations around garage sales. I'm thinking about it in terms of people and their pets. I know this has also come up before about, Bob, golf carts. So I think this might be an opportunity to actually create something formal, that all communities have to abide by.
Well, and you have to keep in mind that we are a federated association. Think the United States of America before the big power grab in 1932.
I wasn't alive for that, sorry.
We're basically a federated state. There are certain things that the Master Association has jurisdiction over and that they can do, but a lot of the individual governance of your individual homeowners associations are left to your individual homeowners associations. We had this issue come up once about, for example, recreational vehicles. And the result came up that yes, the Master Association, the Community Association, could certainly come up with rules about where RVs could go on community association property. But once they got into the individual homeowners associations, that was something for the individual homeowners associations to deal with. that was their issue. And it was up to them to decide whether or not they liked it or didn't like it.
And I get that, I respect that every community should have their own individual rules, but obviously there's a lot of common ground that people in each community might go, walking their dogs, riding their bikes, etc. So, I mean, is it completely uncommon for a larger community not to have some general governing rules for that all the communities have to follow? I'm not talking about specifying mailboxes across the whole community, but obviously when people are riding their golf carts around, it's not just for their particular neighborhood.
Like I said, this is a rather unusual community in the way it was originally structured back in the 1970s. We are not a true master association, for good or for bad, because we can't impose rules on individual homeowners by and large. Okay, that's up to the individual homeowners associations. We are an association of associations. We can impose rules amongst ourselves, but not against individual homeowners. That's up to the individual HOAs. Now we do have a certain amount of jurisdiction over community association property, okay, like the boulevard, like some of the other roads, and some of the areas that happen to be owned by the community association. We can certainly govern those and regulate those freely. But when it comes to creating like general rules like, owners have to pick up after their dogs, that would be something where we're governing the people. And that's something that this organization really, that would be an uncharted water area for this association, considering our membership consists of other associations and not people.
So would you say the association supersede the?
No, not necessarily. Okay. We're a federated association. Okay. You have states' rights and you have federal power. Okay, like I said, it's pre-1932. Yeah, think of it that way.
My HOA covenants specifically forbid garage sales, estate sales, and things of that nature. And I think almost every other HOA in here has very similar covenants.
Many of them do, some of them don't. It's just up to the individual homeowners association. Really
I live in another community with 177 homes. We had annual garage sale for several years. We'd have to have 3 sheriff's deputies directing traffic, and it was still a go road.
Yeah, maybe what we should do is each of the presidents find out what is allowed in their association and their documents. See if garage sales are allowed, and yard sales and estate sales, those kind of thing to know, and then have because if they're not allowed, then they'd have to change their CCNRs, correct?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So let's find that out first. Otherwise, we'd have to have if the community association, then we'd have to be on the boulevard. Not sure that's going to fly. Yes, Mr. Pemberton.
What are we going to do to help this lady that was holding the dog back? I mean, we just listen to her and she leaves.
So what would you? What would you? I don't know.
I think also in all our CCNR somewhere it says you got to have your dog on a leash.
Sure.
And you got to maintain control of your dog. The dog's too big to maintain control of. What do we do?
Rod.
They also have a community control officer that can be contacted, and I'd make sure that would happen anytime somebody runs into anything like this lady, and that it should be reported.
So it's very similar to the decree from traffic control that if you see a crime, call police, not traffic control.
Correct.
That's really what it has to do.
We had a very similar situation.
No, it's happened. It's tragic when it happens.
And we called both the sheriff and this control person. Sheriff came out like that. Control person came 2 days later.
So Just for clarification, you the association president did, or the victim of the crime?
Yeah,
They did, right. And that's essentially unfortunately what the answer is, because again, that's who has the enforcement power. It's the thing, everybody wants rules, but we haven't figured out. I think there's one community, maybe two, that has a fining committee. I think Eagle Pond and does Fairway Patio still have their, yes, that's the only two that were, the rest of them haven't gone to taken that step. Because it's a very interesting step, no doubt. Yes, Dave?
Just for clarification, is there going to be some kind of update on how they're losing money?
That's right, we just had it. We just showed the 4 quarters. It'll be posted on the website, the presentation. It was just showed on the board through 4 quarters. Mr. Shire did an exemplary job.
4 months.
4 months, excuse me, what did I say?
4 years.
4 quarters, excuse me, that's a basketball game. I'm watching the game the other night. Yeah, the first 4 months of the year, thank you.
That was where we lost $111,000, or is that last?
That's what the LLC lost lost $11,000 total for the year. Yeah, there's and it got glossed over there a little bit, but on the LLC's book so far to date, there's $638,000 worth of expenses. That's more than what the amenities assessment is. So there's been some talk in various committee meetings that the community is paying all of the expenses of the amenities. I mean, I showed many of you in this room the expense side of the LLC, and Mr. Shire, the treasurer, has unfettered access to it every day if he wants to. There's plenty of expenses shared, so it's just for clarification purposes. Yes, ma'am. Well, it's an amenity. It's part of the amenity package, and it at $11,000 a year lost for all the amenities last year. That's what it was. If the board determines that, the board doesn't have to support the amenities. It doesn't have to. They can make that decision at budget time. Can change the budget number if they want to. Anything else?
I got one more thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Potter.
I just want you guys to think about this. First, a question though: did this whole community used to be 55 and older?
No.
I've heard a rumor about that. I just was wondering if that was true or not.
No, sir.
Okay.
That's an average.
I don't know if I'm
I agree. Yeah, that average is falling now.
I heard that. Well, I agree. Well, we all know that the community is changing, and I didn't like that story I heard about the dog.
Me either.
I've been in a situation, but I don't want to talk about my situation, but because I handled it a little different. And we can talk. I don't know where she went, but we can.
She left.
All right. Well, anyway, there's our neighborhood's changing, and I think we all know that. And we had talked about golf carts and how do we enforce this. We talked about the dogs. How do we enforce this? And just something that maybe you guys can think about. So we have all these different communities inside here, and as soon as they cross into different areas, it seems like they made it over the border. So I mean,
right.
that's what I feel like.
And it's essentially true.
It's essentially true, and unless you're somebody like me that's not afraid of hurting someone's feelings with a camera and police, there's a lot of people that aren't willing to do stuff like that.
Sure.
So maybe, and since I'm saying it, I'm not going to just pass this. If you guys want me to look into it, I don't really have the time, but if you guys want me to look into this, I'll do the research. What if we were to take a look at traffic control and turning it into something security. This might mean that people might have to maybe either be on board or not be on board with it, maybe having a different company come in and running that aspect with maybe people being on golf carts and actually having the authority of the Masters Association to go around and take care of these things, being able to actually, because the only thing I can think of that would correct these is if, I'm not willing to do it myself, I'm not willing to be Steve Potter and bang on doors with my camera, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
And I don't even think that there's people at traffic control that if we said we were going in this direction, number one, would be interested, because I know I wouldn't. But there are companies out there that have cars, and there are companies out there that have golf carts, and I don't know if anybody has ever explored that. But the only common thing I can think of that we all have to pay into would be the traffic control. And I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe it's been explored, maybe it hasn't, maybe nobody ever said it. I don't like saying it out loud because I get along with those guys and I don't want to think of them as having to go away. However, I just wanted to lay that at your feet and maybe have you think about it a little bit, maybe talk about it. Anyways, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, Rick will respond.
Steve, good question. Probably about 6 years ago, before I came on board, the committee at that point in time did look into outside vendors for gate operations, which would have included perusing the neighborhood in marked vehicles, the whole shebang.
Okay.
It's a budget, yeah, it's a money thing.
Okay.
And at the time, I was not in on that. I got to see some of the paperwork after I took over, trying to run the gate. That's one of those things that my guess is when you first hire somebody like that in, the numbers might be very close to what you have as far as finances go. And then the next year, probably not. We are blessed in that the people that are manning the gate up there live here. That's a very big thing. I agree, the dog issue, whether or not somebody patrolling the streets in a marked vehicle would have been able to do anything to stop what she's experienced. That's one of those, if you're there and I see it, I can stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is something that this group as a board need to, if you want me to relook at that, I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, but how about this? Does anybody want to do that? Does anybody want to waste? It could be a potential waste of your time. And I don't want to waste anybody's time if nobody's willing, number one, maybe to have to only have the extra cash to do it.
Right.
And number two, does anybody feel the same way I do?
Sure. And that's something this board, and I don't speak out of turn, but Scott's presenting a workshop for this board to entertain purchasing the amenity package. That's probably not going to come at the same dollars that we're spending right now on our HOA fees.
Sure.
I'm speaking as a resident. I have no voice in this because I'm just a VP up here. But all of those things, doing patrolling streets, going to, I've mentioned before, a proximity reader type of software to gain access. All of that is dollar. And so this board is going to be faced with some decisions to be made. So anyway, that's it. I'm done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, Rick.
I have two things. One, the road is scheduled to be done in December now.
Yay.
For Christmas. And number two, I move we adjourn.
Second. All right, we are adjourned. I will follow that lead.
I like that.
Before you guys get up and walk off, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make one comment to you. I really hope June the 11th you'll come to the workshop. The TAC committee is going to give you a significant packet of information. That'll help. We've got several months before we have to make a decision, but you need that information. We're working really hard on it. And you're also going to get a couple of requests from the amenities committee, probably for a couple of workshops, at least one. So I hope keep that in mind because we really working hard to give you a lot of information. And you're gonna have it, I believe, a few days ahead of the workshop.